morning, everyone. How are you? That is hypothetical. If you all answer, we'll be here for an hour, so please don't. Well, welcome on this, what are we in now? The fourth week of Advent. We're glad that you're here with us. In my studies this week, I came across a post online about our topic for today. The post is titled, 7 Rejections. And it is a list of text threads where people have been rejected by other people asking them out. And here are a few of them. The first one is, can I buy you dinner tonight? And the response comes back, could I just have the money you were planning on spending instead? Number 2, do you want to get together this weekend? And the answer, sorry, I'm planning on having a migraine all weekend. Number 3, when are you going to ask me out? And the answer, right now. Will you please go out? Number 4, I think I can make you very happy, don't you? And the answer, why? Are you moving out of town? Number 5, do you want to go see a movie with me on Friday? Answer, no, I've already seen it. If that doesn't tell you where the person stands, I mean, nothing does. Number 6, where have you been all of my life? Answer, hiding from you. My favorite one, number 7, the final one. Haven't I seen you someplace before? Answer, yes, that's why I don't go there anymore. Ouch. Maybe you've been the recipient of one of those texts. I hope not. But we all know what it is like to suffer rejection. Over the past 3 weeks, we've been studying through the Christmas story together in the Gospels, seeing how God is seeking to identify with us in the human experience in the person of Jesus. In week 1, we looked at Mary and Joseph's characters in the story and how they were being accused of getting pregnant before their wedding. In week number 2, we looked at how the birth of Jesus brought all different kinds of people together and how some of the ruling class at the time weren't very happy about that. In week number 3, we saw how Mary and Joseph are forced to flee for their lives and for the life of their new baby into the territory of Israel's ancient aggressors. Make no mistake about it, the birth of Jesus Christ and his entry into our world wasn't at all how we see it depicted on Christmas cards and in the movies or on our worship director's sweater. The Christmas story, really, if you read it in context, is kind of a mess. It begins with an unplanned pregnancy, and it ends in this new family on the run seeking refuge in a culture that is not their own. And that brings us to our topic for today. Today, in our final week of the Christmas story, we're looking at another topic about Jesus coming into the world, where it is also difficult to see tinsel and lights. Our gospel passage today from the Gospel of John talks about how Jesus entered the world, and it says this. He entered the world, yet the world didn't even notice. He came to his own people, but they didn't want him. But whoever did want him, he made to be their true selves, their child of God selves, the God begotten. What a passage about Christmas, huh? Happy birthday, Jesus. Nobody wants you. That's literally what that says. You know, in the earlier years of my life and my work, I spent a great deal of time searching for my people. And what I mean by that is I worked in a world for a long time where I didn't feel like I fit. And I was looking for a place where I did. I was fortunate enough to get a full ride to college to be trained as a pastor, and I thought when I went there that I would find my people. I remember my very first day in my first class realizing that that was not true. And I sat there feeling very alone, very much myself in a room of people that were nothing like me, thinking, that guy's nuts, that lady's nuts, the professor is definitely nuts. I don't know how I'm going to go through this. And I would try to form these friendships with people that I went to school with, and I often felt like we were talking a different language. It wasn't that they weren't nice people, they were wonderful people. They were genuine and generous and fun to be around, but something just deep didn't click between them and I. When I got done with my schooling and I moved back to Pennsylvania to start working in my field, I encountered the same thing again. Wonderful people, genuine, generous in every way, but whenever I was around them, I always felt this pressure to not be my full self, to edit myself. The way that I talked about things, the things that I enjoyed, even the things that I believed about God, I knew that if I voiced these things around these people, that they would be met with silence, confusion, or worse yet, rejection. And in one way or another, I think we all know what it feels like to not fit within a group of people. As a species, it's just how we are. We are a species of tribes. We're all looking for our place and for our people. And that couldn't be more true when it comes to faith and spirituality. And what I find strange about the Christmas story in particular is that Jesus coming into the world, and even as Jesus aged and entered into his life's work, is that he encountered much of the same. It's like it's this sort of rite of passage for the spiritual life. He came to his own people, but they didn't want him, the passage says. And then the next line is followed by talking about the leftovers, those who got rejected alongside of him. And of them it says, but whoever did want him, he made to be their true selves, their child of God selves, the God begotten. And I know that as I have searched for and luckily found my tribe over the years, a tribe that's really difficult to define, this has always been the thing that I was seeking from it. A place where I could be my true self, my full self, the person that God made me to be. And don't get me wrong this morning, I'm not saying that I was searching for a people with whom anything goes, with whom there was no collective movement toward goodness or improvement. What I'm saying is that I was searching for people who were moving toward goodness and improvement in a way that was also genuine for me. And if there is any cluster of people in the world where our differences about this become more clear, it's certainly in the realm of belief. It's not about drawing lines and separating ourselves into warring tribes, if you will. It's about gathering together with those who bring out the best in us. It's about being our true selves, our child of God selves. And this is why I believe that it's okay for our community to be here in this place as a group, and it's okay for there to be another community across the street meeting, and another down the street meeting. That's not a testament to our separation as people of faith. It's a testament to genuineness. Places where we can gather and be our true selves. If you're taking notes this morning, write this down. When community centered around authenticity becomes our focus, we begin to see God working in the world through our differences. When community centered around authenticity becomes our focus, we begin to see God working in the world through our differences. Did you know that God wants you as you are and not as you think you should be? And let me add another line to that, because this is just where the rubber meets the road. Did you know that God wants others to be as they are, not as you think they should be? God wants us as we are. Let that sink in for a minute. God wants each of us with all of our preferences and our quirks and our hang-ups and our contradictions. These are beautiful things that make us uniquely who we are when we bring them to God and we devote them to God. When community centered around authenticity becomes our focus, we begin to see God working in the world through our differences. And when we live out of that, when we live in the world from that mindset, from that posture of heart, our living and our believing might look very different from others. But God begins to work through us in a way that is genuine for us. He entered the world, yet the world didn't even notice. He came to his own people, but they didn't want him. But whoever did want him, he made to be their true selves. And as I look out at this room today and every Sunday that we gather, I see people from all over the world. Different tribes, different languages, different traditions, different denominations. Of course, we all have our opinions. It's not only possible, but it's probable that when it comes to the finer points of belief, that not a single person in this room believes the exact same thing. And that's not something that discourages me. That's something that encourages me. In some strange way, that feels like home for me, personally. That's a kind of tribe I can say yes to. And I feel like the luckiest person in the world to have found this place that we call our church, that sees beauty not only in where we agree, but also in where we differ. This week, as you go out into the world and into the very height of the holiday season, where maybe more than any other time of the year our differences become most apparent, I want to encourage you to give yourself a break. I want to encourage you to give the people in your life a break. In every instance where differences arise, pause and remind yourself internally, I am in the presence of a child of God. This person with whom I fundamentally disagree is living and breathing because God lives in them. So what can we find to agree on together? If you do that, though the disagreement won't go away, you'll find yourself listening and interacting with more grace, more openness, and more tolerance. You'll find yourself in conversations with people having the end goal of finding the kernel of truth in what they're saying, instead of trying to think of a rebuttal as to why they are right and you are wrong while they are talking. When community centered around authenticity becomes the focus, we begin to see God working in the world through our differences. And that's another lesson of the Christmas story, is that Jesus understands what it's like to not be able to find your home, to find your place, to find your people. Jesus understands rejection. Jesus entered a world that rejected him. Some didn't even notice him. And his response to that was to build a tribe of those who felt the same. A collective of those who could never seem to find their place and their people became a tribe in and of itself. My prayer is that we would create those kinds of environments for all of those in our lives this holiday season. People that we see without a place to belong, a place to call home. And in living that way, we see Jesus being born again, not only this Christmas, but in every Christmas that follows. Let's pray.